So Shepherd's Bush today is probably famous for its Westfield shopping centre, and over the years it's probably famous for its market, hustling, bustling market on the west side of London, close to the BBC studios. But historically for Sikhs, it's had a long association. So that area of London for Sikhs, I think, is of historical significance, especially for Sikhs outside of India. So when we say the Western Hemisphere, first Gurudwara in Europe, and then for the UK, so many stories, so many of our stories are woven in to that area. So for a little history of the Sikhs, we've developed a walking tour called our Holland Park Shepherd's Bush walking tour. And actually you can look at that west side of London, start at Kensal Rise and work your way through Notting Hill, get to Holland Park and explore Kensington and finish at the current Gurudwara in Shepherd's Bush. And you really go through nearly 150 years of Sikh history. So stop A is Kensal Green Cemetery. Now Kensal Green Cemetery is one of the great cemeteries in London. So when you go there, it's full of historic and important people. And it actually has a very strong link to Sikh history. Because Maharani Jind Kaur, she was the first Sikh to actually pass away in England. She was the mother of Maharaja Dheerej Singh, and in 1863 she passed away in Kensington. Now at that time there were no arrangements for cremation, so Dheerej Singh had to work with the government to fulfill her last rites according to Sikhi. So whilst that was happening, her body was laid to rest at the chapel of the dissenters in Kensal Green Cemetery. So that's a strong link. And during that time that she laid in state, she had many visitors. And one of those visitors was actually Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens came to pay his respects to the Maharani of Punjab, the great kingdom in India. So when you go there now, the Dissenters Chapel is still there, and outside there's now a memorial stone that says Maharani Jind Kaur laid here in rest. And you can see that, you walk through, and that part of history and that story is told through this memorial plaque. So stop B, we head through Notting Hill, get to Holland Park, and that's the Kyoto Gardens in Holland Park, because really that was a park that was on the doorstep of Maharani Jind and Maharaja Dheerej Singh when they lived at Lancaster Gate. That was their local park. So for me, seeing the peacocks in the park and the Japanese gardens kind of brings that eastern part, although the Japanese gardens are very 1980s, they came after, a memorial later. It just shows that little connection to the east. So through those memorial gardens, we end up at 53 Holland Park, and 53 Holland Park was the London residence of Maharaja Dheerej Singh. So when he was at Buckingham Palace or when he was engaging with the Queen, he would come from Thetford and stay here at his house and then take his horse and cart through to Buckingham Palace from Holland Park. So there's a memorial stone there, a blue plaque actually, an English heritage blue plaque to say the Maharaja of Lahore lived here. Our next stop on our tour is at number 10 Sinclair Road, and it's at number 10 that lived Max Arthur Macauliffe. Now Max Arthur Macauliffe lived for a significant period in Amritsar, had Gyanis around him and translated the Guru Granth Sahib into English. It's the translation that many academics start with on their journey into Sikh studies. And Macauliffe then retired, moved to England, lived in Kensington at number 10 Sinclair Road. And Khan Singh Nabha actually came to visit him in London. There's photos of them together because they worked together in India on the translations. He came here, and most historians are sure that 79 Sinclair Road would have been facilitated by Max Arthur Macauliffe, because it was 1908. He lives down the road. He's heard that a house has come up for sale. No one's really going to sell it to, people from India of a different colour. So he facilitated the sale, most likely. And that's why 79 Sinclair Road was the headquarters of the Khalsa Jatha from 1911. It's the first one. So 79 Sinclair Road is actually the first official Gurudwara in the UK and registered as a Gurudwara. Prior to that, they were renting, the Sangat were renting a house in Putney. But because they were renting, the landlady didn't really want to say that they were renting to a group of Sikhs. So there's no official records, but they do know there was a house in Putney. But where the Khalsa Jatha British Isles established in 1908, bought their first premises, was here at 79 Sinclair Road. And when you see the old pictures, you see the house just as it looks today. But if you look carefully, you'll see a Nishan Sahib above the front door. And that was the Gurudwara from 1911 to the 1950s. And I have those photos. And then now the flat looks exactly the same because it's listed. It's just minus the Nishan Sahib. So if we look at the first time in 1908, we were renting a room in Putney. there was a small Sangat, students basically coming down from Cambridge, some at UCL, university students, and they knew that Maharaja of Patiala was on a visit from Patiala to London. And they made an inquiry to meet with him at the Savoy Hotel, because he used to use the Savoy Hotel in his UK embassy. He's from Patiala, so he would have a room, and that would be all correspondence to the Maharaja would be care of the Savoy Hotel. So they went to meet him and said, look, we would like to set up a Gurdwara in the UK, a formal structure. And he agreed to it, and he put up £8,000 donation. But then what happened, he from his perspective, it would serve as his embassy when in the UK. So it became known as the Bhupinder Singh Dharamshala. So then all his correspondence in between visits to the UK would be to now Sinclair Road 79 rather than the Savoy Hotel. So, and over the years it grew and grew and grew. So for many visitors who came to London, they went to the Dharamshala, because that was their first stop before they organised themselves. So that brings us on to the current Khalsa Jatha British Isles, which is located at Queensdale Road. Now that was Norland House, used to belong to one of these church groups, Norland House. And the Jatha acquired that by raising funds during the 1950s and actually moved in 1969 to its current location. So prior to that, they were always at Sinclair Road. Moved to their current location, which today is actually within walking distance of Shepherd's Bush, Westfield, the Westfield shopping centre. Basically, instead of going into Westfield, you cross over the lights, and literally within 100 metres is the current Khalsa Jatha British Isles Gurdwara. It's had refurbishments over the years, but its most recent refurbishment was to a very high standard. It has lots of weekly visitors because of its historic connections. And people, I think, don't really know the history around the streets, so they do ask, I think, in the Gurdwara. But we've now produced this electronic Google map, so if anyone asks, they can download it from the library at the Gurdwara and just walk around, go to Sinclair Road, go to Holland Park. If they want to walk as far as Kensington Green, they can do. Otherwise, they can get on the train and go back to central London.